Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video review of the DM98. This is a smartwatch that runs on a full version of Android. So essentially, it's a smartphone in a form factor disguised as a watch. It has quite a large display, measuring in at 2.2 inches diagonally. It's a capacitive one, which is fairly sensitive and easy to use and offers a pretty good viewing angle experience since it's using IPS. With that being said, it definitely is a large smartwatch compared to more petite and smaller options. This one definitely feels a bit more hefty in its design and its ergonomics. So it's not for everyone. But as you can imagine, there's a lot more that you can do since this has access to the full Play Store for applications that you can download and interact with, watch YouTube videos, maybe even browse the web and send text messages since it does support 3G and there's a nano SIM card behind the back. It's unlocked GSM World Phone. So this is what the watch face looks like when you first boot it up. It shows your time and date information along with the charging status. It uses a proprietary magnetic pin system to be charged, and it takes about 3.5 hours to completely charge. One of the more disappointing facets of this watch is that it lasted me about a day after fully charging it, which isn't as long as I would have hoped. With that being said, there are definitely a lot more complex sensors on board, from the dual core processor to 4 gigabytes of RAM to Wi Fi to GPS, Bluetooth. All these services, of course, will drain your battery. So that's something to keep in mind. So if I tap on the watch once, it's going to take me into the main UI. From here, you can see that it's definitely not running on your default or vanilla build of Android. Instead, it's running on a heavily skinned version called Fun OS, which has been designed by the watch manufacturer. You have access to some quick shortcuts for main tasks, and basically it just makes the experience easier to use on a smaller display by using swipe gestures on the corners of the screen. So for instance, I can swipe to the right here to have access to notifications. This is going to be my notification shade for Wi-Fi, for any new incoming calls or text messages will be shown here. I can swipe again to see my clock and time and date info again. I can change the actual clock face by tapping and holding on this, and from here I have a set of under 20 watch faces I can customize with. Some of them are a bit more useful than others, such as one which we can also display the weather information in addition to time and date, which is pretty cool. Another one which simulates the Apple Watch experience by providing a moving animation. But unfortunately, there isn't a way to download more watch faces, so you are kind of stuck with the ones that you find on board, at least for now. I can swipe again to the right to have access to some quick shortcuts to some commonly used programs that the company thought would make sense, such as the steps and calories burned as a fitness tracking tool, in addition to accessing the dialer pad and the weather information from a quick glance. Tapping on this instantly brings you to the actual app that will allow you to perform that action. Let's take a quick look at the sample video that I just took there, and you can see that it really just takes you to the traditional Android experience where I can tap on play there to just play the music, the video directly. So you can hear that the audio quality is actually quite good. The speaker is loud and rich sounding. It's not the most dynamic. It doesn't have that much bass as you expect. It's not stereo, but for a watch, it actually does a decent job. So in this interface, I can tap on these icons to send it to social media, to Bluetooth. I can also delete it. I can edit it. So all these features are available just like on a regular phone, which is ridiculous. I can even edit this video directly from here, although obviously it's not going to be the best experience, but you can do things such as stop, loop the video. So these tools are all available as you would expect from an actual device. Okay, so let's check out some of the other features next. There's a dedicated app for sleep tracking, actually, so it separates that from the regular fitness activities, but tells you your light and deep sleep based on how much you've been moving around through the accelerometer. It's actually pretty accurate and gives you an indicator of how much sleep that you're getting and your health, as far as the last 5 days and even up to a month if you want to save it. So a pretty good feature on here. You can turn it on or off just to save on battery when it's being used at night, but it works pretty well. So let's exit out of that. Next, there's the Audio Center, which is just a media player. What that allows you to do is play back music you've loaded up to the memory, or you can also use it as a remote when you've linked it to another smartphone or an iPhone. And you can use this to control the volume as well as adjust the tracks if you have music playing back on your regular smartphone, which works pretty well. Finally, there's weather, there's additional tools and utilities, such as the calendar and the calculator, which is also optimized for this screen size, and it works pretty well. It really takes me back to the days where calculator watches were popular and dominated by Casio. So this really, kind of is a throwback in a sense to having that feature back again in the form factor of a watch. So let's tap on again to take a look at some final features that are preloaded. Obviously, you can install whatever you want since this is an Android phone, basically. There is a file manager on here, multimedia, for full videos and images. Style isn't actually that useful. There's only just two really built on here, but if I want to tap on this, it takes me into a symbolic interface, which is a bit more cluttered, in my opinion, a bit uglier, but it does give you the ability to go and change that if you want to from this instead of the symbol-based one. This is more of a tile-based one that reminds me, I would say, of Windows Phone OS. There's also a health reminder program on here that tells you to stand up or drink water after, let's say, 30 minutes or an hour of inactivity. Again, it uses motion and it uses a timer to know how long you've been before drinking water or standing up since sitting down and working, which is a sedentary feature also found in a lot of fitness trackers. And that's a pretty cool feature that you can access here. So this has been sorted a bit more easily into just a few simple apps, but if I want to, I can also scroll up for some additional programs. So the Internet Explorer on here is really just the web browser. You can see you have a few bookmarks that have been included as samples. Of course, you can populate it with your own, but if I tap on Google here, I've connected to Wi-Fi. You can see it's actually pretty fast. Multi-touch does actually work on here. So surprisingly, you can pinch in and out. It's pretty lucid. You can look at maps. You can look at directions, type something really quickly, and search it up. So all of those features do actually work. Tabs on the very bottom, you can look at other of your saved websites and it will load it up. So such as the New York Times is a good benchmark for a lot of cell phones, but you can see how it renders on a mobile interface. It's like this. Obviously, it's powerful enough to render the classic desktop site, but you really don't want to do that since the screen is so small already. This is a lot easier to read. It really is a bit of a struggle, but you do get a few lines of text for a summary of whatever is being displayed in addition to main images. So it is usable, surprisingly, as far as web browsing is concerned. Kind of a proof of concept, not the most practical thing in the world, but again, it works. This is what the QWERTY keyboard looks like. Extremely cramped, but since it is using a capacitive screen, it is at least somewhat usable, and there's haptic feedback, so it vibrates like if you're touching an actual screen. So it actually does work, and you can kind of tap on this. There's predictive text to search up specific things, and it actually is quite fast since it has again, a dual core processor underneath the hood, so everything does work. I can still use the same gestures for going back between multiple screens. I can open up multiple tabs for multitasking purposes. Let's actually try opening up YouTube and see how it fares with. All right, so here it's loaded up YouTube, the mobile version, and we have our own channel up front. I can even tap on, let's say, the first video that pops up and try to play it back. And there we go. We've full screened the video, and you can see that it definitely is watchable. Believe it or not, 2.2 inches was actually pretty average for music players and MP4 players just a few years back. So it still kind of takes me back to the days where you would have an iPod, a smaller, like an iPod Classic, and watch videos on it. And it still is surprisingly doable, even after all these years, since the size of screens on phones these days have really exploded and phablets have become the norm. But let's tap on play here, and you can see sometimes it's buffering a little bit just because I have it on 1080p right now as a default. But I can, of course, change the resolution to make it a little bit lower. I can also scrub between places in the video itself to skip ahead. And of course, this is a little bit more dependent on the Wi-Fi connection speed. But obviously, everything does work as far as it's not going to be something you'll use day to day, maybe more as a quick emergency player or as a cool conversation starter to show your friends, since you do still technically probably have your phone with you, right, when you're traveling or on the go. So this isn't just your only phone or IoT internet device. But as a proof of concept, it is quite cool to look at. Facebook and WeChat as well as WhatsApp are just the regular versions, slightly more optimized for the smaller screen that load up and work as advertised. It works fine. So here, the Google account, you have to add your own you can log in with your email and afterwards install apps. What I will say is even though apps will work and run, they are extremely cramped on this tiny screen. So you have to be a bit smarter and pick apps that seem a bit more optimized for mobile devices. So there are a few that developers have started to work on, but obviously anything will technically work. It's just not going to be as enjoyable on a small screen size. I guess I came away feeling more or less surprised with this DM98 smartwatch as really a full Android computer running on the size of a watch. It's reminded me of how far we've come in terms of computing technology. On the other hand, there is the question of usability, but as a proof of concept and as a geek at heart, I find this type of product really enticing and just cool to play around and have. It almost fulfills that dream of Star Trek as well as the Dick Tracy communicators that we've seen through history and through comic books and popular media. It's coming true. It actually works a lot better than I thought it would as far as the execution. The touchscreen is really responsive. The swipe-based gesture system is actually pretty cool. I thought I wouldn't like, something that isn't stock Android, but it makes sense on a watch since it has to be optimized for touch so that everything can be accessed a bit more easily. Sure, this isn't the most advanced smartwatch or fitness tracker per se. There isn't a heart rate monitor, but as far as making and receiving phone calls, reception is very good. It definitely does work as far as running Android apps, a little bit slower sometimes, but for the main UI, everything works just fine. The pedometer features work just fine, and there is that dual core processor underneath the hood. So everything for the most part works as you would expect it to. And it's just this idea of having this powerful palm top computer on your wrist that really is enticing. Now, is this a great companion to a pre existing Android phone or a iPhone? I would say probably not. It's not trying to compete, I would say, with the Apple Watch or some other Android Wear devices that are meant as really just companion tools that gives you push notifications. This attempts to do that. There's third-party apps that you can install as well, but it's more meant as a dedicated all-in-one device that's really advanced on its own. It's a phone basically on its own. And for that, it works quite well. The speaker is a lot louder than I thought. There's a haptic feedback that works really nicely for push notifications, for emails, social media networks that you might get that comes in through notifications, and everything basically works. The camera is also positioned correctly. So yes, it's not perfect. It's not for everyone. The battery life is a little disappointing, but the DM98, as far as a concept goes, I think I still am happy that it exists, and it's sub $80, which is super affordable for something like this, and all the parts that you're cramming into a size this small as from an engineering perspective. You can check out more details about this in our official written review, but for now, this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the DM98 Smart Watch.